Today I am going to narrate a short story on the topic Nado the Great Hunter. He stood, shot an arrow, and again ducked behind his saber. A huge boulder that stuck between the two very large trees that almost seemed to dominate the sky by its very sheer sight. Nado had set so many traps for the tigers that he almost couldn't remember where he had set one. That very morning, he had decided that day would be a great one to go looking for his traps. Maybe they have something good in store for me, he had said to himself with a grin. With an empty stomach, he had started towards the Himalayas, trekking along the rough land on foot, gibbering incoherently. As the thorns picked him for hours, he had wandered from one trap to another that bore no reward, just a few small deer and boars that had already started to produce some awful smells. He had felt disgusted. He had almost given up when he suddenly remembered the whole trap he had set in the middle of a clearing. He had dug that hole for at least 2 weeks, sweats pouring from his hand and labored body with the sun high up in the sky shining down mercilessly, appraising his work. The hole was at least the size of the mouth of a cave and 12 feet deep. He had trod towards the hole, whistling a tune, his hands folded behind his back. As he neared the clearing, he had seen the unmistakable big paws of the big cat on the ground. He had walked slowly along with the cat's paw on the muddy ground, studying carefully. They were of not more than 2 or 3 days, he had guessed. He kept on walking, each step making him more excited and anxious, and his happiness had known no bound when he discovered the paws disappearing into the hole. The leaves and twigs he had used to cover the hole was blown inside by something heavy while falling down into the hole. No doubt it was a tiger. He had rubbed his hand with glee, had put down his belongings on the ground, including his bow and a volley of arrows. He had edged towards the hole and peered in, and what he saw next gave shiver of fear running down his spine. The tiger inside was not only alive but waiting with a blank, hateful look. Then something unimaginable had happened. The beast inside had roared so loudly and with all its might, leaped up from the hole. God alone knows how, but the tiger succeeded to jump 12 feet high like no crazy things. Nado, taken aback, stood with his mouth open, but regaining his composure, had rushed towards his and braced himself for the coming duel. Belongings picked up his bow and arrow, but the tiger disappointed him. It didn't attack him immediately as he had expected. The tiger remained in a crouch position, ready to jump and pounce, its tail swishing. back and forth, its teeth ready to suck out the fresh blood and spill it on the green ground as an offering to the gods and goddesses. Nado had slowly retreated further out from the clearing while also keeping his eyes glued to the beast. When he thought he was safe and distanced himself from the clearing, he had taken shelter behind the huge boulder between the two trees, and ever since he had been shooting his arrow for almost an hour. Fly through the air. The arrow tooled through the air, searching for its target. The arrow pierced the lower part of the abdomen of the beast, splattering bolt on the ground. The ground shook as the beast roared in fury. The little birds took flight and small animals took off in all four. He peered from behind the boulder just in time to see the big cat running towards him. He let his arrow fly swiftly one after another but failed to make an impact. The beast was gaining speed. Then the beast was over him. He ducked down as the tiger flew over his head, landing over half a yard away. The tiger turned and attacked him viciously from all sides. Nado tried to defend himself, but this time was a second too late. The full impact of the beast's body against him threw him in the air, sucking out the breath from his lungs and sent him sprawling on the ground. He rolled over until a sharp rock hit at the side of the head, and he heard his head crack. Blood began oozing from the wound. The pain was so intense that he nearly lost his consciousness. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. He tried to stand, but his legs gave away. He heard the footsteps of the tiger approaching him, and as he looked up, the tiger raised his paw and swung it at his face. But he had already lost consciousness. The whole of Mr. Nado was blackout. Nado jerked up from his wooden bed to the sound of ringing bell from the old hakang, located above the village. Usually he used to wake up before dawn and do necessary chores, but that day the nightmare were imprinted in his head, so he quit doing his chores. Instead, he went outside and a gush of wind greeted him, ruffling his hair. He walked straight towards his farm, located about half a mile away from where he lived. Finally, he reached at the edge of the plain, overlooking the farms of all the farmers that stretched as far as an eye could see. Nado grumpily noticed to his dismay that all the crops lay destroyed and torn apart by the wild beast. Ever since the extinct of the tigers, the deer, wild bears and other herbivorous population has been growing ever since. The villagers have conducted several meetings but failed to have proper decision. Once during a meeting, fight have broken out between two groups, resulting in delivering of black eye, visiting of hospital, and bleeding. Nado had not participated in the fight, have come home and had slept a long day. Nado had always blamed the government for the problem they are facing. The government was too weak and the tiger across the Himalayas has been hunted down by the foreigners for the illegal trading. Once Nado had even heard from his friends that the Indians Gundas had broken into Manas National Park and the armies there did nothing as Gundas hunted down every tigers and elephants. Now, as he looked across the vast plain of crops that were nearly destroyed, his hope of overcoming this problem was a bleak, just a dream that you would never achieve. The men from the villages have built hundreds of traps to no avail. The wild animals never seem to run out of the numbers. Few have died fighting with bear, others knowing that their end is near and want to live their life happily with loved ones. Nado knew that the country would be thrown into depression without the food. The government would not be able to control the starvation. The country itself would be wounded, and someday all the occupants would live out of hunger, and new occupants would reoccupy it with different set of laws and cultures. However, or whatever, it didn't matter to Nado. He had nothing to gain or lose. He was an orphan boy. He would die happily. The next day, Nado woke up to see a long line of soldiers, their rifles slung across their back and walking along the farm. Nado remembered the men talking about the government planning to wipe out most of the wild animals. The rumors are true. The soldiers now would kill every animal mercilessly for no fault. The soldiers began to line up in a long row and began the march towards the forest. A big crowd of villagers have gathered to view the scene. As the soldiers began to enter the forest, the soldiers were beginning their rituals of killing the once peaceful Chinese country, changing. The slow thud of the automatic rifle sounded, followed by more and more. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Until then, thanks for being with me. Thank you.